Hello friends, for today's video I'm going to be doing some first impressions for the show Apothecary Diaries. I'll go ahead and start with some general non-spoiler thoughts and then I'll dive into specifics for the first 4 episodes, as that was what I pulled from for these first impressions. I did only watch the show. I know there is source material as well that the show is based off of, but I am unfamiliar with that. I just jumped into the show and I can tell you that I already am in love with this. So the setup for this story, it's pretty brief, but the idea is you're following this young woman named Mao Mao, and she is an apothecary. She is living with her father. She also comes into town. She seems to have grown up around and has become friends with a lot of women who work in a brothel. And she also, it would seem, does test on herself to try and figure out more information about various different poisons and medicines. And then when she is coming home one day from visiting the brothels, she is kidnapped and then she is sold into servitude within this palace. The palace is walled off. It's absolutely massive. There is an emperor within this palace, as well as his concubines, and there are different sections of this area. Within the palace, our main character is trying to do everything she can to keep a low profile. She doesn't really want to attract the attention of anybody who would matter, as she doesn't want to risk that, despite the fact she would be paid more if it was revealed that she has a lot of knowledge about herbs and medicine and poisons, and also because she can read, despite the fact that that alone would make sure she would get more money paid to her. She also recognizes that her kidnappers would gain a cut of that, and she does not want them to gain anything. So she is just trying to go about her life as a servant, and specifically a laundress, as quietly as possible. But she can't resist being curious about things. She can't resist knowing things. And she ends up helping one of the most favored concubines within these walls. And in doing so, absolutely attracts the attention of some powerful people. And it is from there that the story takes off. She is one of the most instantly likable main characters. I love her so much. She is somewhat dry, and she's clever and she's curious and she absolutely loves what she does. Also, the way that the humor plays out in this reminds me a little bit of, I'm so sorry because I know I bring it up all the time, but the humor in this reminds me a little bit of Full Metal Alchemist, in that in Full Metal you'll see sometimes the characters are just drawn like animals or like ghosts, and they look really bizarre, and anytime there's even a moment of uncertainty or confusion, suddenly the characters are drawn really bizarrely, and it's a lot of fun, and this definitely takes advantage of that means of humor, and that's part of what I think gives it its charm. But on top of that, it has so much heart, and there's so much to it already that has made me go like, oh. And there have been a couple times where, if you're somebody who maybe cries easily, there are a couple of stories within these first 4 episodes that maybe really will pull at your heartstrings. On top of that, you really want our character to get through her years of servitude, as she is expected to serve for 2 years. You want her to get through that because you're worried for her father, and she's worried what her father is thinking and how he's doing, and you're like, oh no. So you have a reason to care about her beyond just the fact that she is such a likable character. It's so much fun. I also think that there are hints to there being some greater plots and intrigue that is going on within the walls of this palace, as within the walls it is only the emperor, his favored concubines, the servants, his kin, and then eunuchs. Men are not allowed in if they are not related to the emperor in some way. So then you're wondering, okay, well, obviously certain people will want to gain favor with the emperor. How are they going to go about that? And the favored concubines, they have a better life than other ones. How are they going to try to manipulate each other so that they get the emperor's attention? But also it's sad. You don't want them to have to want the emperor's attention just for a chance at a good life, but also the servants' lives aren't that good. And you just kind of roll through the fact that there's a lot of moral grayness in what's going on, but there's a lot of potential for there to be some really compelling stories within these walls. I have adored it so much so far. I want to get into specifics with these first 4 episodes though, so I am going to segue into doing some spoilers. If you don't want to know anything, then you are of course free to click off now, but I am going to jump into my reactions as I watched through these first 4 episodes. The first episode of the show is titled after our main character. I did look up a pronunciation of this character's name, and it would seem it's pronounced Mao Mao. But it does kind of sound a little bit closer to Momo. I am watching the sub as opposed to the dub, and sometimes it's harder for me to catch when they say character names. I will probably need some time before I have the characters' names pronunciations clear, so apologies in advance if I say them a little off, but this first episode is titled Mao Mao. And the first thing I wrote was the colors are beautiful, just right from the opening. I think it's not just bold in its decision to use these kinds of really bright, vivid colors, but also the colors themselves are very bold, and you can very easily slip into the colors clashing with each other, but they just have found a way for all of it to feel so almost magical. This is historical fiction. I don't imagine we're going to actually see any magic in this, but I have loved the visuals of this. I also think the attention to detail in the architecture really makes it stand out. Everything just feels so pretty. The way their hair looks, the way their clothes look, everything. The details are incredible. So I love not only the way it looks, but the color usage as well. And then the second thing I wrote was drastically different from the first. I put harming herself because you very quickly see the fact that she is harming herself to try and test out and build up a tolerance to the things that she is working on, usually poisons. I did already know that this would occur, as my friend, she informed me of this when she was hyping up this character. So I did know this was occur. It wasn't a huge shock, but it does go to show what lengths she's willing to go to really satisfy her curiosity. I just love how much she wants to learn more, and that passion she has. I think it's great. After that, I wrote, oh, her poor dad. I did kind of touch on this in the non-spoiler section, but I feel so bad for him. It's sad, and I don't even know anything about the guy. Just the idea that his daughter was kidnapped and taken away, that makes me sad. Oh, the baby died. I couldn't believe, that was my next note. I was really surprised that the one concubine's baby ended up dying. I was hopeful that both of them, because you do see at the beginning these 2 concubines, one of them, it would seem, is liked maybe a little bit more than the other, but as a result of the way in which people are trying to gain favor constantly, you do feel that the concubines, they have to be suspicious of each other. So when the one is given a clue about the powder, specifically given a clue by Mao Mao, you are hopeful that both of the women will heed this information and ensure that their babies are kept safe, except for you never know if that information is just some kind of strategy or some kind of lie. Will this actually cause more problems? So it was so sad that the one baby ended up passing away. That was really kind of surprising to me, only because so much of this show is so silly, and obviously there is darker or heavier topics already presented before this point, but I was just really surprised that happened. It was very sad, and I do feel really bad for that character, because I think it'd be really easy to look at her and be like, oh, how could she care more about her powder or whatever, but trying to imagine yourself in her shoes, she's probably lived with this sense of danger constantly. Plus, someone's probably at some point tried to poison her, or she has seen other people be poisoned, and I can imagine why she would be on edge constantly. More on that character later, because she does come up in another episode within this batch. Okay, I put the shoulder shove. I love how much Mao Mao does not like Jinshi, and how much she gets the creeps from him, but there's a part where he puts his hand on her shoulder, and obviously all the other servants and laundresses and everything are like, oh, he's so dreamy. They all think he's just so beautiful. And then she's always like, over him. But he's trying to use his charms. And there's a part where he puts his hand on her shoulder and she's just like, And I don't know why, but it was super funny to me. Then this episode ends with her being promoted, as you would expect. We do kind of move along within this first episode, but it didn't feel like we were glossing over really important details just to try to, for the sake of the pacing or anything like that. It did feel like it was a good first episode, introduce you to the character, introduce you to potential conflicts within these walls. And so my overall thoughts that I did write for this is good first episode. I already love her as a character. It seems like there's potential for a good amount of intrigue, but also her poor dad. What's going on with those soldiers? Because we end off with some soldiers. One of them throws a stick into the fire, and then some of them just start keeling over and dying. And you're like, what's going on with that? So then we segue into episode 2, which is titled Chilly Apothecary. And the first thing I wrote was the concubines always have to be wary. And this is when you first start getting hints that not just the concubines themselves, but their women that are waiting on them, you would hope that they're loyal to them. But if they are really loyal to them, they might be so loyal that they might try to deceive, trick, and even harm the ladies in waiting or the concubines themselves in the other areas. So I just feel like it's a really sad situation that these women are put in. Mao Mao doesn't like being flirted with. Yeah, that's a continuous theme that I'm already totally fine with, this recurring joke that she's like, about. She's so excited to taste the poison. When they bring her in to be the person to eat the food first to ensure that it's not poisoned, I feel like most characters would think, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I could die at any moment. That's literally the premise of some books, is a person as punishment has to be the person to test for poisons. And here's a character that's like, yes, about it. And also she gets to eat some pretty good food on top of that, which is hilarious and great. I like the head lady making sure the kidnappers are charged. So the woman that's in charge of the ladies in waiting, she finds out that our character kept her intellect a secret because she didn't want the kidnappers to get more of a cut, even though it would have meant she would have gotten more money. And this woman goes to hand her something that costs a lot and then just drops it. And she's like, oh no, I'll have to take that out of your pay. But luckily your pay as our apothecary isn't affected by that. And I'm just like, I like this lady a lot already. There's also a moment where the character Jinshi is kind of testing his flirting skills back and forth between Mao Mao and some of his fans, I'll call them, where he makes a little face or does something and the women are like, ah, and then he does it to her and she does the like shiver thing again, and then he does it back and forth, and I just I'm repeating myself. As I said, the joke is recurring, so my appreciation of it is recurring as well. I do like that we got this reveal and we got the opportunity to see how well Mao Mao knows her craft, as she very quickly reveals, hey, it was probably, if this branch could have ended up in the fire, that would have been enough. And you're like, nice, okay. I like not only how capable of a character our main character is, but just the amount of detail that would have had to have gone into creating this character. I think it's part of what makes her feel so real's maybe not the right word, but it just makes her come across as having so much to her because there's so much to her knowledge, and it feels like we're going to continuously tap into it. And I'm just excited just to watch her puzzle out mysteries, even if I imagine we get a greater plot over the course of the story. Even if we kind of for a while are spending time with these almost one-off mysteries, I'm okay with it because I love her and I love watching her figure stuff out. There is a potential, I guess you could call it, reveal within this first section where this very handsome man, Jinshi, is used to test some of the loyalty of the women, and he is sort of relaying this information to the person that assists him. And I was wondering, what does the Emperor do to these women that fail the test? Because once again, even though this story has a lot of humor and charm, there is a lot of something very sinister lurking beneath. And I'm wondering if we're going to learn more about the Emperor. He doesn't seem like a good person. I mean, I'm not a fan of any person having a bunch of concubines, but regardless, he also doesn't seem like somebody who fosters a welcoming, wholesome environment, and this is an example of that. You also see Mao Mao make some pretty good chocolate. There's a scene where the other servants of, I'm not sure how to say her name just yet, Gyokyu, Lady Gyokyu, her other servants, they're all like scantily clad and all up close to each other because of the chocolate Mao Mao made. Similar to episode 1, we end episode 2 with sort of a hint into the following episode, which would be the unsettling matter of the spirit. With this one, we start with the woman who is dancing, but also people are wondering, oh, is this a spirit? Mama's friend, I haven't mentioned this before, but the other laundress girl who has the cute little braids, I'm not sure her name, but she's so cute, and she kind of fills her in on what's the gossip of what's going on, and she gets so excited and like, oh, you've been promoted, and she's just precious. But her fear is that it's some spirit of a concubine who tried to escape. Meanwhile, Mama's trying to figure out if this is the result of, she's just trying to piece together why this woman is experiencing potentially sleepwalking. And I really liked the reveal of what this was. This is the episode that made me kind of emotional. But we're going to go ahead and get through what I wrote first. I put her excitement about the food and then the instant sadness when it's taken away. She goes to that person who she's going to work alongside whenever she needs supplies and everything. She goes to them and they're like, oh, here's some tea and also here's some food. And she gets so excited. And then Jinshi comes and then the guy's like, oh, I should get you some. And she's like, ah. And I like how much she not only likes what she does, but how much she also really likes food. Why does Jinshi like being looked down at? It was so funny when what is the assistant's name? I think I have it written down, but regardless, the assistant is chatting with Jinshi, and whenever Jinshi seems to be thinking about Mao Mao being creeped out by him and giving him dirty looks and stuff, he gets so weirdly excited about it. So you're like, all right, that's a reaction. Getting back to the concubine, though, you discover Mao Mao's theory that she's been keeping to herself, but then she does eventually tell Lady Gyokyu that her theory, it came from what she experienced in the brothels, or what she observed, where one of them, they found out, or she found out later, that there were two men that knew each other, and one of them was in love with the woman at the brothel. So the other one tried to have her marry him, but then she pretended to fall ill, and then that person canceled their arrangement, and as a result of her supposedly being ill, it then made her more affordable, so the person who actually loved her could then afford her. And our main character here is assuming it is something similar that's happening, where she is purposefully, this woman has purposefully sort of ruined her chances at having a comfortable life, or at least the level of comfort that some of the other women have. She's ruined that chance by purposefully messing up her showing to the emperor. She was apparently this beautiful dancer, and then she purposefully fell, or at least that is the assumption. As Mao Mao discerns, she is likely doing this because she has somebody back home who loves her, this soldier that supposedly wants to marry her, and everybody thinks like, oh, how lowly that this princess is going to have to marry this man. But she's thinking, I think she wants to be with him. And that little scene where it does show you that she was correct, and you see them in the little cart, and she goes to reach out for him, and then the man just wraps her up in a hug, and she cries, and you're just like, oh. Sad that they had to go through all of that just for the opportunity to be together, but I'm glad they got to be together, and I never even heard them speak, and it's nice and it's lovely. And then we have episode 4, which is titled The Threat. I don't have too many notes for this one. I wrote that the ladies in waiting are annoying for the other character that she is assigned by the emperor to help take care of. They look down at her, they tell her she's filth or something similar, that her status, she's like, how could she even be in the presence? How could you bring her this stupid food? And they're being really obnoxious to her. And then when Mao Mao realizes that they have still been putting that powder on this woman, and she just smacks the lady in waiting and starts bossing everybody around. Not only is this character very capable with her own abilities and her own knowledge, but when she needs something to get done, when she actually has a position of authority, she uses that to ensure that whoever she's trying to help gets helped. So I don't just love her because of all the reasons I listed before, but because she genuinely cares about basically her patients, and I really, really like that about her. But my note specifically in that moment when she slapped that lady and started basically telling her how miserable and pathetic she is, I wrote, oh dang, she's not messing around. And then at the end, I wrote that I felt bad for this concubine, and I wrote she just misses her baby, and it's really sad. Anyway, then it ends on such pure silliness where she's like, I'm not as beautiful as Lady Gyokyu with her bright hair, and she's just talking about how like she can't compete. Mao Mao's just like, you have other assets though. So anyway, that's where this episode leaves off. As I said, I have absolutely been loving this show. I like the humor. I am currently really in love with our main character. I am excited to learn more about the inner workings of the intrigue. I don't even know if I can call it politics exactly, but I am excited to see where, if we get a greater plot, where it goes from here. I want to know if her dad's okay. I have loved these first 4 episodes. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. Feel free to let me know your thoughts on Apothecary Diaries. Thank you to everybody who recommended it to me because it is so much fun already. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.